a day. So, of course, nerd that I am, I had to dress the part. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you're tuning in from. My name is Alex Sorotsky. I am a public health educator with the Washington Poison Center, public health educator with the Virginia Poison Center. And we have a super exciting guest, Dr. Phillips, today, who is the interim medical director with the Washington Poison Center. And you're going to hear a lot of Star Wars references, so hang on, brace yourself. He's got more credentials than a Jedi Grand Master today, so we're so excited to feature his expertise. Now, why are we here today? We are here, I hope you kind of have a sense of what we're up to because you clicked on the stream. But if you didn't, if you just stumbled into it, that's okay. We all work for different poison centers. We represent 2 of 55 different poison centers all across the country. Now, one of the coolest uniting factors of every poison center is our toll-free national telephone helpline. That is 1-800-222-1222. You can call us in any poison exposure situation to help you, your family, your kids, any adults you're with. You could call from yourself. You could call from a healthcare facility, and we can help you out. Now, we get calls on all sorts of situations, and what brings us here today is a more seasonally specific one. So while Tatooine in the Star Wars universe is summer all year long, we on Earth have all these different seasons we cycle through, which brings with it all sorts of specific poison concerns. So we're going to take a deep dive into spring-specific poison risks and hazards across our different poison centers. So let's get started with a topic near and dear to my heart and sinuses, allergies. So Fiorella, you're in Virginia, we're in Washington. We have different types of allergies and pollens that pop up. Those totally differ by region and all that. I'm guessing we probably get fairly similar caller concerns regarding allergies. So can you tell us a bit about why someone might call the Poison Center in regards to allergies?
We get a bunch of different types of call when it comes to allergies, or, well, I guess I would say more specifically their medication. So perhaps there's medication errors, their dosing. Maybe someone got into the wrong medication. Yes, kids, we have that a lot too, doubling up. So it's a lot of, I would say a lot of medication errors and dosages.
All right, thank you. Now, Dr. Phillips, why might we be concerned about allergies and allergy medications at any poison center?
Well, there's really 2 main points of concern, and because allergies are so ubiquitous, so are the use of allergy medications and remedies. So we think about kind of 2 main categories, kind of the expected side effects, and that might mean taking a diphenhydramine, and one of the trade names is Benadryl, and there's a variety of other ones, and that can make you sleepy. It can give you a dry mouth, it can make you a little constipated, and so we will get calls about expected side effects, but we also get calls about over-medication when someone takes too much of a antihistamine or allergy medication trying to combat that. And that can result in all kinds of very serious side effects, from being very sleepy to having seizures and heart rhythm problems. So it can be quite a problem.
Thank you for walking us through that. Do you have any suggestions just to help prevent those kinds of accidents from happening?
Sure. Well, I always say only use medications as they're directed by your provider or the label on the product. And if you're having any more serious type symptoms or things you don't understand, call your poison center at the 1-800-222-1222 or call 911 if it's more serious.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and we like to emphasize that the Poison Center is always here to help. And if someone is not breathing or is unconscious, bypass us and call 911. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit away from allergies and more towards bites and stings, because it is theoretically, depending on where in the country you are, probably some nicer weather. Folks are outside more, they're hiking. There's more exposure to creepies and creepers, crawlers, and critters that are coming out. And while there's no Sarlacc pit like on Tatooine that we could fall into on Earth, there are things that could bite us, that could sting us. So, Dr. Phillips, what are some common bite and sting concerns that we have here in Washington specifically?
Well, of course, our climate's a little bit later than in southern states, but we're always concerned about different types of bee stings. Ants and ticks are very common, but also this time of year, we're starting to see rattlesnakes that come out and come into contact with people. So we should really respect snakes and keep our distance from them. Most often, the minor bites and stings from insects can be managed at home and may need some advice from a poison center. But snake bites and bites from other animals like skunks and bats and so forth are a little more problematic. And that really means you should go to a healthcare facility, hospital, or an urgent care to really get checked out a little closer.
All right, thank you. Now, Fiorella, how about Virginia? Are there any Virginia-specific creepies and crawlies you'd like to reference now?
Well, I mean, we do have this, the bees stinging and things like that, and spiders. But well, one of the things that when I moved back here after a lot of years is that especially where I'm at, I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and just the central Virginia area, we get a lot more calls here, for example, in the Pacific Northwest on the copperhead snakes. I had no idea. So it's pretty much a copperhead town. So just around starts to get warmer, probably pretty soon, we'll start getting more and more calls. That snake. I think where you are at, I think more perhaps rattlesnakes, but here we definitely see a lot more, copperhead snakes.
All right. Now, kind of in the same vein, not necessarily about creepies and crawlies, but one of the things Washington is known for is hiking. We have a lot of avid hikers. And Fiorella, I actually don't know the hiking scene in Virginia. Is there a hiking scene in Virginia?
Yes, of course there is.
All right.
I mean, yes. I mean, I live by the river, and a lot of people like to do that as well. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely a lot of flora and fauna as well here too.
The famous Appalachian Trail runs through part of Virginia, actually.
Oh, perfect. I gotta travel more. I need to get out of Washington.
Hikes in the world that I've never done, but I'd like to.
Now, whether you're hiking around Rainier National Park or across that Appalachian Trail, Dr. Phillips, what are some concerns that hikers need to watch out for?
Well, hiking really brings you into contact with lots of things in nature that you wouldn't necessarily find in your backyard or your garden, particularly different insects, animals, plants, and even mushrooms. And when it comes to plants and mushrooms, people oftentimes are somewhat enthusiastic about trying to consume them as part of a meal. And some can be very edible and some can be quite poisonous. And unfortunately, there's a lot of lookalikes. You might be thinking you're getting wild onions and you're certainly not. You're getting something that's quite poisonous. So you have to be very careful. And I always tell people, check with an expert. And that's an expert who's a reputable expert who really knows plants or mushrooms before consuming them. If you're going to have mushrooms, only have small amount of one particular type. Don't mix and match different types of mushrooms or plants in the same meal. That makes it more problematic for us to identify and help you.
I think that's a very excellent point. If you are going to do the research and go into this kind of foraging mode and try a specific mushroom or plant, stick to one at a time, because that does help folks at the Poison Center know what might be causing a given symptom. All right. And I will remind, now folks can call, we've been talking about calling the Poison Center in poison emergencies. You can also call the Poison Center, any Poison Center, to get information. It doesn't have to be an active emergency. It could be you know what, I'm feeling really sneezy and I want to take this amount of Benadryl. What is safe to take? You could always take that approach as well.
Yeah, we like information calls.
Yeah, if we
But
can prevent, we can.
yeah, so I
Go
was
ahead,
just going to
Fiorella.
say, so I might not hike as much as I would like to, but I definitely do go and do some picnics by the water. So it's something that, for me to keep in mind. I want to remain poison free, and I'm sure a lot of people here that are listening too. So Dr. Phillips, what would you say are some of the, I guess, poison culprits when it comes to foods or just having a picnic outside?
Oh, well, picnic outside, really the problem with food outdoors is food at the wrong temperature, not preserving it and preparing it appropriately and transporting it. So if you're going to have a picnic, make sure that foods that need to be chilled or refrigerated are chilled and refrigerated, and not allowing to warm or thaw too long um, before you consume them. So if you cook them, make sure you eat them after you cook them. Don't wait when you're out of doors.
Do you have any other tips that perhaps that can help people with hopefully preventing poisoning, food poisoning?
Yeah, always try to keep it cold when you're transporting it. So if you're hiking in addition to your picnic, then of course most people will have hiking types of meals that are prepared and sealed and don't suffer the same problems as a simple picnic. So try to keep your food less than 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Keep your food clean, wash your food, store it properly. Don't cross contaminate uncooked meats with cooked meats or other types of foods or vegetable. And if you are cooking meats, make sure you cook it thoroughly. And there's lots of temperature guidance for different types of meats to make sure they're cooked thoroughly to ensure that you don't get any types of infections from the meats.
Thank you. That's awesome. Good to keep in mind, especially when it gets around 90 to 100 degrees pretty often here. Very humid in Virginia. So yes, definitely keep in mind the storage of food.
No one wants to deal with food poisoning on a hike or a picnic, let alone in 90-degree humid weather. That's not a fun combo.
Right.
All right, folks. So for those who are watching now, please feel free to drop any questions in the comment section. We should be able to see that if you're tuning in from Facebook. We are getting close to the end, so I want to pitch it to both of you. We'll start with you, Fiorella. Are there other spring-specific concerns you'd like our viewers to note?
Well, I guess I just want to say, like, especially we talked about a lot about hiking or being outdoors, and perhaps this is the best season to do this. Just be careful when you're out there. And again, yes, snake season is coming up, so just be very aware of your surroundings. If you have kids, teach them to respect the snakes, or even plants that they don't know. Teach them to not to touch, and always ask a parent. And I think that's just be aware of your surroundings. And for example, snakes, they are, for the most part, they will be afraid of you. So if you see one, just kind of slowly back away, since this is what we have here. But yeah, and just have fun and enjoy the rest of your spring into summer.
All right. How about you, Dr. Phillips? Any last points of advice?
Well, one thing I kind of glossed over when I were mentioned hiking, and that is, didn't really talk about, I mentioned the backyard, but I didn't really talk about some of those things. And of course, one of the things in the backyard and or your garage would be fertilizers and pesticides or gasoline that you might put in your lawnmower. And make sure all of those are safe and away from young children. Those in particular can be quite hazardous. And oftentimes they're put in the wrong container. We see these kinds of calls every day where gasoline is in a drinking container. And that's just really a setup for a disaster. So be very cautious with that. Be very careful touching fertilizer granules or liquids with bare hands. Make sure you use resistant gloves or clothing on that, because it can burn your skin as well. So just doing things in your backyard and your garage, beware and be safe.
I'm so glad you circled back to that. I realized I completely forgot to lob that question to you. So good attention to detail there. All this was just a test for Dr. Phillips, and he
Did I
passed.
pass? Yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks. Oh, hey, we're getting a question. Haha, I love live questions. What are some food safety tips for grilling outside?
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I can just add a little bit here. We'll start with clean hands. We often overlook this, the beginning of this, and just make sure. And then we get into, separating, not cross contaminating things that are, raw versus things that are cooked, and always cooking foods at the right temperature. And I think we're going to put actually a link in the comment section a little bit later, so you can get more information on this. But any other tips, Dr. Phillips?
I think the one thing is it's probably easier to cook meats indoors to the right temperature. It's a little harder to estimate on the grill. So always make sure you check meats on the grill, or if you're hiking, make sure you cook it, so it's done through and through, not just raw, because that's a setup for food poisoning.
The last thing.
The link that we'll set up is a great link that has all kinds of great information for you on cooking indoors and out.
Excellent. One of the final things I'll add with grilling specifically, you asked the question, grilling outside, that's key, is that using a lot of these barbecues and grills, they are meant to be outside, because a lot of them produce pretty high levels of carbon monoxide. And what's so tricky about carbon monoxide is you can't always smell it. Which is why it's important to have a carbon monoxide detector in the home, and to keep all grills and barbecues and generators and that kind of thing outdoors, where it's very well ventilated.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll pause for just a couple seconds, or drag out my wrap up for a couple more seconds to make sure there aren't any other last minute questions. And if for folks who watch the recording of this, please feel free to put a question in the comment section. We check those very regularly, so we're always happy to do some follow up and provide information that way as well. My homework for everyone watching is, if you haven't already, please put that Poison Center number in your phone. Write it down, put it on your fridge, tattoo it on your arm, whatever it is you need, so that you can access it when you need it. It's always helpful. Aha! And my dragging out worked. We got another question. Let's see. Ooh, good long one. Oh, for insect bites and bee stings. Ooh, I don't know this Adolph's meat tenderizer paste or baking soda paste. Is that a treatment that is routinely used?
It actually is used. That particular product contains a papaya extract, papain, and what that does is an enzyme that breaks down proteins. And so a lot of venoms are composed of proteins. And so that's the mechanism of that home remedy, is that can break down that protein. The problem is the meat tenderizer doesn't get under the skin, right? It just gets on the skin. So if there's venom on your skin, it can help. But once it's injected under the skin by a stinger or a snake bite, then it doesn't do much good. Baking soda is kind of a compressive that helps a little bit. But there's no magic remedy in these things that's going to completely resolve it. You're certainly welcome to try it, but if the symptoms get worse, call that number on your screen.
Awesome. I'm so happy you're joining us today, Dr. Phillips, because I would have been like, well, call the Poison Center and find out.
Yeah, so that was great. I mean, I've heard of the baking soda before, but I've never heard of the adult meat tenderizer paste.
All right, excellent. Well, I think we're at a pretty solid wrap-up point. Once again, please feel free to ask questions after we end the stream today. We will check those and follow up. And we hope everyone has a safe, happy, and healthy spring season. All right, and I forgot to say, may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you.
And happy hiking.
Happy hiking.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.